The Texans' joint practice with Carolina revealed more team strengths. Howard and Ersery appear to be the team's top tackle options. Plus, CJ Stroud in the offense showed improvement and a sharp day.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Better Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texan podcast is for Texan fans all around. If you're a first-timer, thank you for listening to the Locked On Texan podcast. But I gotta take some time to shout out my everydayers from the Himalayas. My friend Shelby, shout out to Shelby. Well, thank you for coming back to listening to me, your Texans Credential Media member and Texans football analyst. And it's all about the joint practice today, which was a really good day for the offense. I thought, before we dive into the offense, I thought there was a good challenge for the starting defense. We'll hear from Will Anderson Jr. We don't talk about the defense a lot. I haven't a lot on here on this show in terms of the challenges that they face or lack thereof. But Will Anderson feels like, this is a good test, and it's one of those days that you build off from. Joint practice offensive takeaways, of course, with a team that has so many offensive question marks ending off last season, being ranked near the bottom half of the league in terms of offensive statistics, and the question marks coming into this season. I thought that there were a lot of good things to take away, especially because we didn't get a chance to see the starting offense this past week against the Minnesota Vikings in their first preseason game. So this was we got a good glimpse into what this offense can possibly look like. I'm waiting to see, looking forward to see more this upcoming Saturday as they take on the Carolina Panthers. But I'm kicking off today's episode looking at the value of having Tytus Howard and Ariante Ersery at your tackle spot. So listen here, guys. Who was in, who was out? No Cam Robinson, which is going to kind of add to the conversation. No Christian Harris or Damian Pierce for Houston. Those guys did get back into the field of things throughout this week, taking some first-team reps, splitting first-team reps, if I'm talking specifically about Damian Pierce. Christian Harris was out there running with the ones, but they didn't practice during the joint practice session with Carolina. No J.C. Horn for Carolina. I noticed Trent Brown was working off to the side, training separately, and I'm kind of wondering for the Houston Texans, at what point do they have the conversation of, okay, realistically, what does the future Trent Brown look like? Is he a guy that's just a reliable option just in case we need to break the emergency glass, or does it make more sense to move on from him, seeing as though he hasn't gotten out there and practiced with the Houston Texans to this point of training camp? Preseason game 2 is in a couple of days. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins kept the connection alive with a couple of touchdown connections. Jalen Noel stacked another strong day. Tight end Cade Stover made his presence and impact felt by putting a mean whopping block on Derrick Brown, knocking him to the ground. The young running backs continue to impress. I'll get into veteran Nick Chubb, who I still have some reservations about making his team. The offense got started hot early. Bland in the middle period where you saw Carolina kind of win some of those battles, but Houston ended practice perfectly. After Hutch got popped by Carolina defender, they were trying to keep those players off the ground. You see Dalton Schultz come over to stand up for his guys. Things were almost about to get escalated. I kind of was hoping for it, but it didn't reach to that point. CJ Stroud, in the midst of it all, said, let's get back to football. Broke it up before it even really got started. That's the type of leader you guys have. But Houston still gets the score there. But the stars of the day were absolutely the offensive line. Ersery locking in at left tackle, Howard at right, Andrews in the middle, Ingram and Tomlinson at the guard spots for both of the drives that were promising. Really, for any of the promising drives, the offensive line essentially dominated their reps up front. I thought the handoffs between the IOL interior offensive line were solid and consistent for the most part. There is real value in what Andrews brings on the inside at the center position, with knowing his and other guys' assignments and knowing what they are and then executing them well. DeMeco Ryans was asked about the value of getting a different scheme look, and he essentially highlighted how that helps the offensive line. I want you guys to take some time out and hear from Coach Ryans as he talked about that, different looks.
Yeah, for us, schematically, when you're in training camp, especially for us at week 3, right, we've going against offense, defense guys. They know the snap count. They know the plays they're going to see. They know the formations, and it kind of get monotonous after that 3rd week. So to break it up, right, it helps us because Carolina, they do a lot more under defense, which our defense doesn't run much. So our offensive line get a chance to make calls and checks versus different schemes up front. They get to see different pressures, right? How are we going to pick this pressure up? And they aren't scouted looks. Like, we're not game planning the Panthers, so unscouted looks. Let's see if our rules and the things we teach from OTAs through training camp on a day-to-day basis, can you show up and can you execute just your fundamentals and techniques without having a game plan against someone? And that's the beauty of it, right? You don't know what's coming, you don't know what to expect, but can you just play within your rules, trust your technique, trust the guys around you?
Great question by Brendan K. Scott 610 Sports Radio. And then again, an awesome response by DeMeco Ryans, kind of going a little bit more into the nuances of the game and what they're looking for from their offensive line. And again, what we saw out of CJ today, who had a very good practice. I don't think we would see that version of CJ Stroud if it wasn't for the offensive line. I wanted to highlight that response from DeMeco simply because when I watch Howard and Tay on the field together at tackle, and you guys can go ahead and spam Stan Norfleet's comments. You know, we do the Locked On Texas Squad show, spam his comments. But seeing those guys at tackle, it started to become undeniable that those two should be the starting tackles for week 1 and throughout the season, and that the value they bring is this. Yeah, you have the best offensive lineman at his natural spot, and you have the most talented offensive lineman at his natural spot. Of course, I'm talking about the best offensive lineman, Tytus Howard, and the most talented as of right now, Ariante, at his natural spot. Carolina threw a bunch of different looks at the Texans defensively, and from a creative, from creative inside stunts to blitzes, and not much, if anything, leaked inside from that edge spot. And with that, again, CJ had plenty of moments throughout the day where, practice he had the time to make plays underneath or down the field, or just being able to get the ball out to keep the drive alive or scoring a tutty. Look, CJ had the time. One thing that DeMeco Ryans really highlighted and wanted to point out throughout the offseason when we talked about, revamping this offensive line, he mentioned, I got cut-ups. I'm showing these guys cut-ups, so when we give CJ Stroud enough time in the pocket, he's a dangerous quarterback. He's a damn good quarterback. And so that's where, when you look at the value of, what those two guys can be and mean for Houston on the outside at the tackle spots, I think it all starts from the outside in. And that viral clip that's going around right now where Nico Collins scores a touchdown in the back of the end zone, if you look at that, great communication on the inside between Andrews and I want to say that was Tomlinson on the left side. Ingram gets beat on the spin, but he recovers well. Blake Fisher, who was out there on that rep, and I got to give him some love. Blake Fisher did a very good job, but you see Tate getting the pancake and the nasty one at that. So even some of those, not the prettiest or the cleanest pockets, were still operable for CJ Stroud, like the Christian Kirk touchdown in the back of the end zone. Good O-line play really helped Stroud throw 4 TDs on the day, guys, and I think that's probably what we should all be excited about and highlight. Good O-line play helps Stroud throw 4 TDs. Granted, 4 TDs in a joint practice, you take that for whatever you want to take it for, right? Maybe you get high on that. Maybe you're still low on it. Maybe you just on it. But throughout the training camp periods that we've had and talked about, how many of these days that we come on the show here, or maybe you read reports or see videos where the better quarterback of the day was Davis Mills. That was not the case Thursday in Houston's heat against the Carolina Panthers in that joint practice. And hopefully we'll see more of that Saturday. For a team that traded Laremy Tunsil, signed vets that weren't particularly decent their last stops, and decided to roll with a player with limited NFL experience in Andrews, this group has really grown, and a large part of that is being good from the outside to the inside. I am curious to see what happens with Cam Robinson once he returns. He was out there today in street clothes, so he wasn't out on the field. Is Cam Robinson at this point, do they view him as a very expensive insurance policy, right? If you break that glass, you can count on him to withstand whatever the pressure will be. Do they feel like Howard gives them something that Ingram can't? And maybe once we see Cam Robinson return, they shipped Howard right back in. Maybe Howard is a better player in terms of IQ, and I think he is a better player for sure. IQ and maybe what he can provide in the run game. But as of right now, the best version of the offensive line has absolutely looked like Tytus Howard and Tytus Howard and Ariante Ersery at the tackle spots. Up next, more takeaways from joint practice, including another impressive catch from JMA. And also, Hutch is making it very difficult to forget who he is on this roster. First, Texan fans, this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. Listen here, me and a few of the Locked On Texan listeners, you guys have heard me talk about it. We're going to have 2 leagues going on. If you haven't gotten in on that, DM me. Hit me in the comments section. Let me know if you want to get in on it. But we're using Yahoo Fantasy platform to host this Locked On Texan League on. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo where the lowest scored team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. That's crazy, right? With the season around the corner, actually the season is here now. Now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnFA. Welcome back, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Hey, Coach, got a question for you. What's happening Saturday?
We get a chance on Saturday to go cut it loose and play real football.
Play real football. That's what's happening Saturday. That's what they get a chance to do. They get a chance to cut it loose and play real football. And listen here, whenever you play, I think it was like 85 degrees at 8 o'clock this morning. Whenever you play football outside in the state of Texas, specifically here in Houston, during this time of the year, I don't care if it's flag, I don't care what it is. It's real football. But I want to continue today's episode just looking at a very good day from Nico Collins beat the DB Thornton from the Carolina Panthers on a skinny post for a touchdown. Great protection up front, right? Again, if the protection wasn't there, Stroud wouldn't have that time to find his guys like Nico Collins. And on that play specifically, C.J. Stroud delivered a perfect ball, snagged another touchdown Nico Collins did late. Mills hit Mechie on a throw where we saw Mechie have to leap a little bit forward, like kind of dive out forward, Great protection from Juice Scruggs. Hey, listen, Tomlinson and Ingram, we need to see them Saturday because I don't think that, especially Ingram, if this is going to work with Howard and Ersery at the tackle spots, I don't know if Ingram is just flat out better than Juice Scruggs right now at guard. So I am very curious to see if that's something that we may start to hear more of, or seeing Juice Scruggs get some more opportunities and reps with the ones. But, if we do, remember where you heard it first. And then, of course, we'll talk about it here on the Locked On Texan podcast. Berrios was found twice, a few times actually, including a touchdown. Nick Caserio was out there when he caught that touchdown. He was in the back of the end zone, and he threw up the TD signal with the referee right there. Like, hey, listen, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. I don't need you stripes. It's official like a whistle because I saw it. But just seeing Nick Caserio out there is always good. I mean, he's a football junkie. Blake Fisher at right tackle. Up and down performance. I kind of want to say an even kill day. For some people, maybe more bad than good, but I thought it was, to be fair, I thought maybe a little bit right down the middle, maybe 45, 55, bad to good, but it wasn't all bad. He did have a nice stunt pickup that gave C.J. Stroud some time to hit Xavier Hutchinson. And by the way, man, listen, Hutch has had, a good training camp, but this was a really good day for Xavier Hutchinson. I don't know, maybe he's a big brother in that wide receiver room in terms of Cyclones. He's making it difficult. Berrios is making it difficult. Mechie is making it difficult. This team may end up carrying 7 wide receivers. Who knows? But I want you guys to hear from C.J. Stroud on the offensive line performance and also what he's seen from Xavier Hutchinson.
I thought they did really good. I thought Nick did a good job of moving the pocket and switching up quick game to, intermediate to deep to good play action. We ran the ball well. So, it's not just about just dropping back 4 or 5 straight times. You got to help those guys out. And, every D-line is really good and our O-line is really good. They can hold up, and we just got to help them out some. And I think we did that good, but I thought they did great today.
DeMeco and Nick have talked about they took a hit, caught the ball like he always does. What have you seen from him this camp?
Yeah, he looks comfortable, man. He looks like he's finding his own, his own swag in the league. I think he looks great, man. He's not falling on the ground every play. He's staying up. He's running great routes, catching the ball, getting yak, reliable, knows all the plays, blocks well. He's coming into a really, really great vet, and I think he's been great. I think Kels is using him a lot, and, he's like a Swiss Army knife. You got him, F, Z, and X. He moves around. And he's getting confidence. I think that's one thing that I can see him playing with from, that last game we played last year to, this camp was that confidence is stuck.
It's very important to remember, and I want to remind you guys, the Houston Texans initially carried 7 wide receivers on their 53-man roster for the 2024 season. So I'm looking at Nico, Higgins, Kirk, Noah, Mechie, Berrios, Hutchinson. Am I missing someone? Maybe Watts. But right now, these guys have been extremely impressive. And a slow start for the offense. They went to Greenbrier in West Virginia. Didn't start off the best. Ended off a little bit better, and they've been using, that time away, coming together, bonding, which is something the team has talked about, and we can't overlook how important that is. But they've been getting better, and I think Xavier Hutchinson, again, we're looking at Nico, Higgins, Kirk, Noel, Berrios, Mechie, and swap between those two, and Watson. And then of that group, you got a couple of bigger receivers that with Nick Caley and how he moves these players around, and C.J. Stroud just talked about that, but how he moves some of those receivers around or just his offensive personnel all together, how he can kind of, manipulate looks. But Houston got some 6'2" guys. They got some big receivers that they can possibly put on the inside at times, depending on what the goal is for that play or maybe that drive. And so, and I mention that because we know that Brevin Jordan is out. Hutchinson has done a better job in terms of being a better blocker from the wide receiver spot. Watson is a decent blocker as well. So maybe they'll look to utilize all 7 of those guys. Plus, of course, special teams matter, especially for a special team that's coached by Frank Ross. Now, Nick Chubb, I think he struggled a little bit, in my opinion. I saw multiple run stuffs. At times, he looked a little winded, and he just hasn't outplayed the younger backs, in my opinion. Who, by the way, Jawhar Jordan had some good runs for the Houston Texans against the Carolina Panthers. A couple of runs of 8 or more yards. He also caught a screen, catch and run for big yardage. He had a couple of good runs on the day where it was very impressive. And again, he is stacking good moments. And Jawhar Jordan was a fan favorite last year. Houston cut him, but opted to bring him back on the practice squad. Couldn't forget about him. Now he's making plays in his second year after being a late round pick last year. Woody Marks, and the one thing that Woody Marks has been doing, both young backs, they are very good in pass protection. Very good in pass protection. But like I mentioned the other day, running backs don't get paid pass protection. They don't get paid for pass blocking. You get paid for running the ball. And I thought today was a good indication on what they can do when the starting unit is out there. So, however Houston goes about getting a good look and assessment of the running game this weekend, hopefully it's with giving those young guys some carries with the players that will be projected to start up front on the offensive line. And Jalen Noel, he continues to show his worth as a playmaker, explosive plays especially. Caught a beautiful bomb from Davis Mills on a post corner route. He was wide open. Houston, y'all have a problem. And the problem right now is the depth at wide receiver and running back. Houston doesn't have to marry themselves with any of these guys, especially at running back. Like Nick Chubb could make up to $5 million. The contract he signed was for 2.5, but is he just flat out the best right now in terms of, is he better than Dameon Pierce? We don't know what Dameon Pierce is right now, but they have similar run styles. Dameon is younger. Dameon has maybe a little bit more juice. And we also know that DeMeco Ryans has highlighted and liked Dameon Pierce's home run ability, which whenever he gets to carries in volume, you will see Dameon Pierce with a good offensive line be able to break off a couple of those big explosive runs. And again, that wide receiver, I just mentioned, last year they kicked off the season with 7 receivers on that first day roster. I can very well see Houston doing the same thing because you have guys that provide something in special teams. You got guys that provide something underneath. You got guys that can provide stuff over the top. The units between running back and wide receiver, what's so fun about it, the idea is there are so many different backs or running back or wide receivers, that's in that group that can do different things. They can do different things, and they all can block well. I am seeing an improvement in terms of blocking out of the backfield or blocking on the edge of the offense from a wide receiver's perspective. That was a point of emphasis once Nick Caley got here. So all of the football and technical things, we're seeing growth from the young guys, or like a Woody Marks just came in already ready. It's fun to see. It's a good problem to have. Now let's dive into the challenge for the starting defense. I can't wait to talk about that. Will Anderson felt like they could have been better today, and we'll get into why that's important to talk about. More Locked On Texans on the other side. Texas fans, before we dive into why Will Anderson feels like, hey, man, these are the days we got to build on, it's time to talk about your money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. We all have a phone. We carry it each and every day. Monarch Money comes into play at the perfect time, and it's right at your fingertips. Monarch does everything for you. They do all the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. Monarch does all of the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data, track your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. That's very important. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Thank you for making Locked On Texans your first listen today. NFL draft season, fantasy draft season is here. So for your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Madjuk. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Closing out today's episode, I want you guys to hear from Will Anderson Jr. on how he thought the defense played against the Carolina Panthers and his confidence level in the defense at this time.
Yeah, we got to get better. We have to get better. We had some good things that we had done. We got to be a little bit more disciplined, man. Like I said, this is a really good chance to see where we are defensively, just to go against somebody new. And we just got to keep stacking days, keep leveling it up, and taking it each day by each day, man. And I think it just comes down to executing the right way and everybody being on the same page. Today you have days like this in camp. This is what you get. This is what primes you to get ready for the season. These are the type of days that you have to go through in order to be great and to have great defense, man. You have to go through dog days like this when it's hot outside, when you grinding, plays back to back, all that type of stuff. That's what gets you ready for the season. So I'm really glad that we got a chance to come out here and do this today.
Will Anderson is ready for some football. Obviously, clearly he's ready for some football, but he's also absolutely right. I think that coming into this joint practice and coming into the season, you kind of look at the question marks that the Houston Texans have for their offense, but for Carolina, hey, man, what is XL going to do over there? Xavier Legette, he's all in videos. Can he actually play wide receiver and be a productive wide receiver for a team that needs him to be productive this year? Is he going to be a better, in terms of being able to hold on to the ball? They drafted T-Mac. What is T-Mac going to look like? Sanders at tight end. So, there were some question marks for Carolina coming into the season, but Carolina actually finished the year. Bryce Young finished last year fairly good. I think it was 20 touchdowns from week 9 or 10 on out to close out the year, limited the interception. So he was impressive. However, the outside threats were very unimpressive, very underwhelming. So there were some moments today where, and that's even with Bryce Young trying to try Derek Stingley, and he knows, man, they played each other. They know what they SET partners, man. You know what this is. And I know what you are. I know you cold. You know I'm cold. But he tried Derek Stingley. Stingley went up and got that, and it would have been a pick six if that was a live game. But what I looked at from the D-line guys is, yeah, they were used to kind of whooping up on the Texans offensive line, but it wasn't that impressive of a day for them. Now, granted, these guys, again, a lot of these players have known each other for years, whether it's been in college or in the case of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they go way back, right? But there were moments where, and this is just maybe because I was very, not in the know of the offensive line for Carolina, but there was moments where I was like, Carolina's offensive line is doing a damn good job right now. They are performing extremely well, and that's a good thing for Houston. It's the defense. We don't talk about the defense because the conversation is, they'll be all right. That's been the conversation for the most part. The next man up, they'll be all right. Tune up here and there. They're getting guys back. They're getting healthy. They'll be okay. But there were moments where, Xavier Legette showed a play, right? He showed a couple of flashes out there. And I thought that when the ball got in the air deep, there were moments like Derek Stingley got beat on a crosser route. I think that was from, let's see, I'm going to tell you guys. Yeah, he got beat on a crosser route by T-Mac, and that would have been a touchdown. And again, the Texans defense had some good moments. I thought that they had moments where they pressured Bryce Young. At one point, they did pressure him, forcing him to throw out of a sack that resulted in an interception. MJ Stewart, man, listen, there won't be CJ Gardner-Johnson out there to start the season. Understand that we don't know what his timeline looks like, but for all intents and purposes, for the conversation in context, MJ Stewart has been pretty good in his role. EJ Speed has been good in his role and showing flashes of why he's good running, run stopping downhill. Kalen Bullock, he's been good. Jalen Petrie, I thought had some sticky coverage moments, which is good. But overall, it wasn't a day where we've been used to hearing how dominant the Texans defense has been because they've been going up against the Texans offense. And again, tendencies matter. Knowing tendencies matters. So just like DeMeco Ryans highlighted, the Carolina Panthers defense showing different looks, the Texas defense had to show different looks, but also go up against different looks and different formations and get schemed up against, So I thought it was a day for the Houston Texans defense to kind of get checked back into reality, and also us that cover the team, simply because we automatically stamped them top 5, and we believe that they'll be top 5, which this was a joint practice. I am not saying they won't be top 5. I am still stamping if that offense can be a top 15 offense in the NFL, then they'll be a top 5 defense, maybe a top 3. But I love the fact that Will Anderson, who is a leader on that team, is very much a leader vocally and leadership in terms of just follow my way and you'll get it right. He understands and acknowledges, hey, we got to be better. We got to be better. If we are going to be a Super Bowl caliber team, we have to be better. And to recognize that, I think was very important. Overall, a good day for the Houston Texans on both sides of the ball. Plays were made on both sides of the ball. The best part of today, no injuries. Like, no injuries happened during camp. And I asked DeMeco Ryans about the importance of having good, clean camps and getting guys off the ground. And you heard CJ Stroud joke about Xavier Hutchinson stand off the ground. But essentially, like, no injuries. That's their goal each and every day. Injuries happen, but on this day, in this joint practice, we didn't have no problems. Thank you guys for listening or watching the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. For more audio listeners out there, wherever you listen to your podcast, please subscribe, like, and comment. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the world. DeMeco, I forgot, man. What's going on Saturday? DeMeco, what's going on Saturday?
We get a chance on Saturday to go cut it loose and play real football.
Peace.